It's kind of funny. I stumbled upon this article accidentally when making a video for Rock-A-Lot, and I said to myself, I have to put this in a video. This is, new study reveals virtue signaling is a sign of narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. Now, these three things here equate to what is the dark triad of personality traits. And you're going to learn about that in just a minute. And I think it's going to be very relevant after yesterday. Psychology, along with its study, has a bad rap. In a recent set of studies, researchers at the University of BC delved into the issue of virtue signaling, determining after a series of studies based upon pre-established works that virtue signaling is often a hallmark of what is referred to in psychology as the dark triad. So, virtue signaling is a hallmark of these three things. This is a creepy thing right here. It refers to three personality traits often seen together that result in malevolent behaviors on the part of the people manifesting them. These traits are narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. The latter should not be conflated with its political equivalent, so that doesn't mean the political Machiavellianism. They're talking about specifically psychology. We investigate the consequences and predictors of admitting signals of victimhood and virtue. In our first three studies, we show that the virtuous victim signal can facilitate non-reciprocal resource transfer from others to the person who signaled. So what that means is that the people who are virtue signaling do it because they get some resource given back to them from the people that pay attention. What could those resources be? Well, they could be views. It could be money. It could be some other thing, like sex or something. I don't know. We show individuals with dark triad traits, Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy more frequently signal virtuous victimhood. Oh, damn. Well, they go into these studies that they've done, and really I don't want to bore you with a lot of it, but if you look here, study 5 shows that a specific dimension of Machiavellianism is amoral manipulation, and a form of narcissism that reflects a person's belief in their superior pro-sociality predict more frequent virtue signaling, or what they call virtuous victim signaling. They do studies 3, 4, and 6 to test their hypothesis that the frequency of, or the amount that you virtue signal, predicts a person's willingness to engage in and endorse ethically questionable behaviors. And they list some. I could list some examples, but we'll just say, take a look at yesterday. Continuing, the study illustrates the very nature of virtue signaling and victimhood as a means of resource extraction. And I attest to you that some of the people we've been talking about lately use virtue signaling to gather the resources they want from others, and they are experts in the field. But let me tell you how they came to that conclusion. Our hypotheses follow from the proposition that victim signaling may be used as a social influence tactic that can motivate recipients of the signal to voluntarily transfer resources to the signaler. So when you wonder why people play the victim like that and virtue signal out on social media like crazy, it's because they gain some resource. What kind of resources do you gain through Twitter and YouTube? You'd have to ask yourself that question. The argument's not new, and there's even an emerging literature on competitive victimhood documents the prevalence of victim signaling by various social groups, so at least some smart people are recognizing this and studying it. I think this kind of opens your mind a little bit. In contrast to victim signalers, people who do not publicly disclose their misfortune or disadvantages are less likely to reap the benefits of retributive compensation, moral immunity, deflection of blame, or psychological standing, and would therefore find it difficult to initiate resource transfers. Really, here it's saying this is why they do it, and it makes perfect sense. And if you look for the people that follow people that do this, it's exactly what they do. Oh, and it gets so much better. The determinations of some of the studies will not sound unfamiliar to anyone who has had the displeasure of interacting with these people. Here is some of what the study determined. So here's the result. People are less likely to transfer resources to a victim viewed as less virtuous. They were more likely to transfer resources to a victim that appeared virtuous at a slightly higher rate than a victim viewed as neutral, emitting the dual signal of virtue and victimhood will be more effective at encouraging observers to transfer resources to the signaler in an online crowdfunding context than emitting either signal on its own. Oh my God, hold the front door. Emitting the dual signal of virtue and victimhood will be more effective at encouraging observers to transfer resources to the signaler in an online crowdfunding context. Virtuous victim signaling is more frequently displayed by dark triad personalities, even when controlling for factors that may make people vulnerable to being mistreated or disadvantaged in society. Virtue signalers are more likely to lie about the outcomes of games. In the study, the focus was on a coin flip, and those who engaged in virtue signaling were more willing to flip the coin twice and then lie about the outcome if it didn't come out their way than normal people. Wow. This study provides further evidence for the possible use of virtuous victim signaling or virtue signaling in an instrumental way by individuals who are prone to disregard standards of morality for self-gain, amoral and manipulative Machiavellians, and by those with the self-oriented motive of establishing their superior morality. Okay, and let me just go ahead and go through this because we got to go back to that Machiavellianism and the manipulative Machiavellians. We have to go into that because it just gets crazy. Though the result is in reference to virtue signaling being more willing to exploit human nature to gain workplace advantages, and some people work on YouTube, don't they? Through the manipulated perception that they are a victim of circumstance, systematic oppression, or actions, real or imagined, of another person. I can't tell you, in the last couple stories I've covered, the major ones, how much of this shines through for them to gain what they need to gain. Now, what is Machiavellianism when related to psychology? Well, I think you need to know, because this dark triad is essentially what we see from... okay, but let's just keep moving. In the field of personality psychology, Machiavellianism is a psychological trait centered on interpersonal manipulation, unemotional coldness, and indifference to morality. Though unrelated to the historical figure of his works, as we said earlier, so let's scroll down. In 92, a review described the motivation of those high on the Machiavellianism scale as related to cold, selfishness, and pure instrumentality. Those high on the trait were assumed to pursue their motives, sex, achievement, and sociality, in ways. More recent research on the motivations of high mocks compared to low mocks found they gave high priority to money, power, and competition, relatively low priority to community building, self-love, and family. And you got to translate these things to YouTube, but you get what I'm saying? If we scroll down, you pretty much read through this whole thing, and it says what you think it would say, honestly. You've got Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and then the other one is Psychopathy. Now, this is where it gets crazy. Take a listen to this. And I know you know a lot of this, but it's just a refresher, a reminder, and it helps us realize what happened yesterday. Psychopathy is traditionally a personality disorder characterized by persistent antisocial behavior, impaired empathy and remorse, and bold, disinhibited, and egotistical traits, sometimes considered synonymous with sociopathy. Different conceptions of psychopathy have been used throughout history, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about the historical part, but if we scroll down here, there are 3 things it lists, and I think this it definitely shows through. Look. So they put boldness up, low fear including stress tolerance, toleration of unfamiliarity and danger, and high self-confidence and social assertiveness. Then you got disinhibition, poor impulse control, including problems with planning and foresight, lacking affect and urge control, demand for immediate gratification, poor behavioral restraint. Then you've got meanness, meanness. Now, come on. Seriously. Lacking empathy and close attachment with others. Bing, 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 bing. Disdain of close attachments. Ding, 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 ding. Use of cruelty to gain empowerment. Boing, 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 boing. Exploitative tendencies. Defiance of authority. Destructive excitement seeking. Oh, yeah. I'd say that, there's a lot of destructive excitement seeking going on there. If we scroll down, I could go on forever boring you with the parts of this that I think are relevant. But the last one we're going to look at really quick is narcissism. The pursuit of gratification from vanity or egotistic admiration of one's idealized self-image. So it's not about how everybody sees this person, because they themselves see themselves in a certain way and care nothing for what other people think or what they see. So, they think that everybody must see them the way that they see them. And I think this explains a lot, right? We get people that aren't interested in a dialogue. They're not interested in explaining things. They just tell you how it is and expect you to just trust trust it. And that's where the secret evidence comes in and other things, because they are so better than you that you should just trust what they say and you should just give it to them that they have that evidence. You get me? The term narcissism comes from the Greek myth about Narcissus. You know that. Traits and signs. We could go into the whole thing, but I think this is the best thing to read. This is the place for 2 remarks. First, how do we differentiate between the concepts of narcissism and egoism? Because they're very similar at first glance, right? Well, narcissism is the libido complement to egoism, libido being your sexual desire. Basically, this is saying the difference between somebody who has a strong ego and confidence in their self and the difference between a narcissist is the sexual side that gets blended in or forced into the social situation, that gets forced into what they do out there. And isn't that the kind of backbone of the problem we talked about yesterday? Right? You see what I'm saying? Because you can't just say that it happened due to some type of social interaction. It was because sex was mixed into the social interaction. So this explains it completely, in my opinion. But let's read on for just a second. When we speak of egoism, we have in view only the individual's advantage. When we talk of narcissism, we are also taking his libido satisfaction into account. OMG. This is why I think you get these certain people having these issues with all these different women online and it turning into the big explosive thing we've had lately. But there's another huge part to this story, and that is the cult mentality. So keep an eye out for my next upload where I'll break that down for you. Cult-like mentality. Maybe we'll compare it to Scientology. I've been watching Leah Remini's show lately. Well, maybe we'll compare it to Scientology, because I'm going to tell you, my goodness, is it almost a perfect comparison. UNIRock out.